Hello and welcome to this special broadcast with Momentum Insure. This as the brand turns a new chapter as a fully integrated business post Momentum Metropolitan's acquisition of Alexander Forbes Insurance back in 2019. I'm Alicia Sekham. Well, what a year the past one has been, right? With any rules of engagement dictated by COVID-19. It's been a year like no other, seeing everyone forcibly confronted by fear and stress. In that context, it's said that people are strongly driven by emotions and responses are sometimes guided more by emotions than actual rationale. So how do we get people to remain level-headed? Well, part of it is being able to present solutions to creating a safe environment in the face of fear and stress. And over the next hour, we're going to be exploring just that with a focus on Momentum Insure's new campaign, The Science of Safety. What exactly that equation looks like and the influence the possible solutions have on a person's overall well-being and success. Joining me for that conversation this morning, Brent Pretorius, who's CEO of Momentum Insure, human behavioral expert Bradley Daniels, and financial journalist Londiwe Buthelezi as well. Welcome to you all, and thanks so much for being with us this morning. Brent, I'm going to get started with you right at the top because Momentum's latest campaign, as I highlighted, dubbed The Science of Safety. What exactly are we talking about here, and why has it become one of your business imperatives?
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit for us more than a campaign. It's, following the successful acquisition of the Alexander Forbes insurance business, we were presented with a unique opportunity, in integrating these two businesses to think really hard about, why would consumers choose us? And for a successful business, you would know better than me, consumers need a reason. So, we decided the best place to start is to really ask our consumers what they think. So we conducted quite an extensive study, with the assistance of the Bureau for Market Research at the University of South Africa, where we, surveyed our own clients, but also, thousands of prospective insurance buyers. And we tried to understand, what drivers do they think about when they consider short-term insurance. And interestingly enough, I think, we learned three key things. First, and I suppose in a way it's a blinding flash of the obvious, consumers are concerned about affordability. So economic reasons are critical. The second is consumers care about a business that cares about them. So empathy, I think, is critical. And the third point that came out was, out of the top 10 drivers of, for consumers, personal safety and home safety was, absolutely important. So we said, but we must listen to that. And when we think about this integrated business, build a business around those sort of key principles. So we all know that we live in a country, that's unfortunately under pressure from a crime point of view. Our consumers are stressed, they are anxious. So, in our view, a provider that creates a sense of safety, is one that they would hopefully consider. So in this process, we then said, but, maybe, there are two or three things that we can do differently that in our minds relates to this concept of, the safety or the science of safety. And that, in the first instance, again, I think you would know that Momentum is an advice-led business. And for a consumer to have peace of mind, to feel safe, I think that they must deal with a product provider where advice is critical. And the advice is important to understand what risks clients face. And if I have a view of the perceived risks, then there is a sense of safety, a sense of peace of mind. So that's the first important point. The second in this concept of the science of safety and listening to our clients is building a business that really has empathy at the center of what we do. And that's, it sounds, again, perhaps like a blinding flash of the obvious, but I don't think, insurance companies necessarily are always that well known for having that much empathy. So for us, that's critical to get, our staff to really try and understand, that we are in it with our clients. And our best to do that is based on the advice that our financial advisors give because they understand, the client. And then the third sort of leg of this science of safety revolves around the products that we provide and the solutions that we offer. And, and I'm sure Bradley will explain a little bit of the difference later, but there is a bit of a difference between being safe, where our products and our solutions play, and feeling safe, which relates to the advice and the empathy bit. So we've tried to marry those three things into a new business, and we're calling that business Momentum Insure, and we're very excited about what it can do. And ultimately, the end outcome for us, or the purpose, is to help our clients in a country that is challenged, in an environment that is severely under pressure, to have the peace of mind, safety then in a different way, to live their lives in the way that they want to.
Bradley,
so that's the science of safety.
At that point, I want to bring you in here because now we're talking to the psychology of feeling safe, right? So why is it important for people to develop a healthy psychology in this regard? We've got a lot of people saying that feeling safe is the ultimate goal. Is it?
I'm going to say feeling safe is the ultimate goal, but it also is the ultimate foundation, which will predict how anything else looks. So we talk about creating a safe space. So you would have seen today as we got ready for this sort of recording, just about also us feeling safe in the studios and creating the right environments for safety. And so I think that really speaks to the idea that, for example, you can have a house, which is a structure. It's got windows and it's got all those kinds of things. But you'll only feel safe once you lock the door and you know that everything is securely locked. But then the additional thing around actually having the ultimate peace of mind, which will give you the psychological safety, is the idea that if anything should happen here, there is a plan put in place. And that's where I think the short-term insurance particularly comes in, because it gives us that added sense of safety, because life happens. Our geysers burst the minute we leave. Geysers and plumbing, they happen on weekends only or on public holidays.
Especially.
So to know that you are covered if that happens, and that peace of mind is what brings about the ultimate safety, which then allows us to actualize and flourish as human beings. When we're feeling unsafe, we can't really flourish.
Yeah. I'm going to bring you, Londiwe, into the conversation in just a bit. Before I do, Bradley, what this all points to is the kind of attachment we have to our possessions, right? So do we extrapolate from that and say we only enjoy our possessions once we have that feeling of security, whether that be, in terms of personal possession, financial possession, etc.?
Absolutely. So as part of the human development, what usually happens is we start to learn to relate to the world. So this is my M. It's my M. You can't take it. Think about 2-year-old kids. That's what it's mine, right? But that, as we grow older and as we develop as human beings, that doesn't really go away. We still have this idea of mine, and we look after what is mine. So the idea there is, think about then as adults, we often buy things which are very costly, very beautiful. I mean, I can take it to as basic as people who buy fine china, which they never use. It's always up on a shelf, right? They never use it. And they'll only take it out in extreme circumstances. Like if the Queen should perhaps come and visit, they'll take it out. And for me, that's a way in which we don't enjoy our possessions because we're worried, what if it breaks? How am I going to take care of that? So it again proves the point that for us to fully enjoy our possessions, we need to have the sense of feeling safe so that, I can take my fancy jewelry out to the beach because it matches my bikini or my costume and I don't have to worry about it. So again, it points us back to the idea that when we are feeling safe, we can flourish and we really can live fulfilled lives.
Londiwe, so let's explore at this point then the role insurance companies play in this regard. How can making financial decisions around things like insurance make people feel safe? I mean, you've had engagement, with consumers on the one hand, but the insurance companies themselves too.
I think let's start with, when a consumer goes out there, you buying your first house, you're young, that's your biggest purchase in life. And it's that mama, I made it moment. It's that I want you to be proud of me moment. But you don't think insurance when you're going to buy your first car or your first house. It is an emotional purchase. It is adrenaline at certain points. But there's a reason why, if you're financing this purchase, your bank would require that you insure it. It is because of the security, because nothing is guaranteed in life. Anything can happen. So the security is not just for the bank. It's also for you as a consumer, because God forbid, if something happens to this prized possession of mine, which, for some people, it's probably the only real asset they've ever had, I don't want to be left with, a debt that I cannot repay the bank. So the insurance is there for that purpose. But I think for many consumers, until they've gone to a point where they've lost something, they've gone through that experience, insurance still doesn't register as a need. It registers just as the scratch purchase. Oh man, my bank needs me to have insurance. It's an additional cost. But you only realize at a certain point that actually it is security, which is why, when people have deals, they use this term insurance and security interchangeably, because to them it can mean the same thing. Like, I want security from you, whether it is a signed document or you give me something that belongs to you, that you will hold your end of the bargain. So when we talk about security and insurance, it is kind of the same thing when you think about it deeper than just, it's money coming out of my pockets. It's a leak on my monthly purchase.
And yet, Brand, as Londiwe has highlighted there, insurance still deemed very much a grudge purchase amongst consumers, right? A large extent, there's also a lot of mistrust around insurance products and what they actually deliver at the end of the day. So talk us through the idea of safety as this holistic concept that we've been discussing right now, and how that now crosses over to insurance.
You're 100% right. So, I think if one had to rank safety in the context of sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a critical thing for people. But when you rank insurance, in people's hierarchy, we don't rank, that high. And it is a grudge purchase, as you say. So in our view, it is important to distinguish, ourselves perhaps a little bit from the competition, and try and provide solutions that extend a little bit beyond what, just the traditional short-term insurance products entail. And I do think that, normal motor insurance or perhaps even home contents insurance, to a large extent, is a bit of a commodity. So there's very little to choose between, the different product providers. So we said that, again, this idea of, helping clients to feel safe is absolutely important. If I can connect it to our bigger Momentum brand promise of success and being there for our clients on our journey to success, we firmly believe that, this feeling of safety gives people the confidence to ultimately live their lives and then be successful. So we wanted to provide a value proposition that is holistic, which speaks to different safety dimensions. Again, because consumers experience it in multiple different ways. So our value proposition is built around personal safety. So we've got a solution, for example, that is a mobile panic button, which gives a client on their app access to really thousands of armed response providers countrywide. We've got a telematics offering, which helps our clients to drive safely, so safety on the road. And again, in South Africa, where we are confronted with such high accident rates, it is something which can help. It makes a broader societal impact. Then safety at home, so deploying of technology to just check whether geysers are functioning optimally, managing your security, that speaks to that. And then ultimately, in a way, your financial safety. And that financial safety is anchored in the knowing that my insurance company will be there. One, it has the financial means, but it will be there in mindset, so empathy, when something goes wrong. And unfortunately, contrary to sort of popular belief that it will always happen to the other guy, it happens to all of us at some point in time. And then we want to be there. And that's really financial safety.
Yeah. Bradley, do you see that being enough when it comes to convincing people of the kind of certainty that insurance, can bring, where the perception of it is slightly tainted? How does the industry start to win consumer buy-in more so?
So I think Brian touched on a very nice point in terms of, if we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our basic needs is just to have air and have water and have food. And the next one is safety. And before you get to any of the others above, which the ultimate is the self-actualization, which is where we are able to flourish and live our full potential. But if that safety one is missing, we're never going to progress. So I think it's about time that, as insurers, we start to understand human development and human needs holistically. And I think the consumer then also needs to be re-educated in terms of, because if you think about almost every insurance sales, you'll hear the other person saying, can you get it cheaper? Can you get it cheaper? Now, in fact, I'll skip the car rental and I'll rather take, I'll take a bigger excess. because people think nothing and things may not happen. And when it does happen, people have that idea of, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble yet again. And then we sort of perpetuate this idea that insurance is a grudge purchase. And actually, insurance is something which extends our lives and livelihoods. Two important phrases, especially in the time of COVID-19, lives and livelihoods. So if you think about businesses being interrupted, business continuity insurance gives us that sense of safety and security at this time. And at this point, that I think should be the absolute big sale to people to say, let's get ourselves adequately insured, covered, so we can feel safe and we can get through whatever life throws at us.
So, Leo, what's your perspective on how we start getting people thinking in terms of insurance being part of the process of making good financial decisions as well? Because so far we get the sense that the power of insurance is being underestimated severely.
I think it just goes to the point that Bradley made, that consumers need to be re-educated about insurance. Because believe me, a bad incident can set you back a couple of years financially if you don't have insurance. I mean, if you have to pay for a car that you no longer own because it was written off, then you're not going to be buying a new car anytime soon. But I think where things, start to go sideways is when you have consumers, like you say, Bradley, they're taking 11 grand's worth of excess to avoid just paying 150 rands more per month. And then I come to the claim stage. I need to claim. In some instances, they were not even aware that the excess was that high. And this is where, advice comes to play. And you said, Brian, that you believe in being an advice-led business, because what I've found with friends and with consumers that complain is it was there somewhere in written documents, the ones where you take out your insurance through the phone and then someone reads the terms and conditions to you in 20 minutes and it's done. But, it's just someone reading to you, and then you have to go through all these documents on your own. Whereas if you had someone who had explained to you that, you're saving 150 rands more a month, that you're not paying in your insurance, but are you really going to have this 11,000 rand when you claim? Many people probably won't have that. So it's that education part, which I think should be the responsibility of the insurer. Because as much as you're trying to make a quick sale, and, advisors have targets, the telesales people and the call center have targets, and they want to get as many policies sold a day. But they have the responsibility to say to the consumer, this might not be in your best interest, and to go through those details, because not everyone, I mean, me being a financial journalist, I've been in that situation myself where I thought, no, but I didn't know this. So imagine, just
Absolutely.
a normal consumer.
Absolutely. Brand, this is the market that you're targeting, right? This is the kind of mindset that you've got to start shifting as well. And with that, Momentum Insure, as we highlighted, acquired Alexander Forbes Insurance Arm. Talk us through the rationale and the kind of opportunity now that brings into your stable.
Thanks, Alicia. Yes, it's been more than 2 years since we actually started with that process, yet it feels like 15 years in a sense, and, just, a few months in another. To have been in a position to, integrate two businesses during the time of a global pandemic has presented really a very unique business and leadership challenge. So personally, for me, that's been a privilege to have been part of it. But our main reasoning initially to acquire the old Alexander Forbes business was really driven by sort of three key drivers. So the first is Momentum's original short-term insurance business. Momentum Short-Term Insurance was I would say, a solid business. I'm subjective because I was responsible for that business, but underrepresented in terms of size and scale business.
Yeah.
So we had a scale challenge. So that was a critical, reason for us to acquire this business, because we saw the Alexander Forbes insurance business as a complementary business. So to use a sort of perhaps a truck and load analogy, we had a good truck but not enough load, and we believed that we could, integrate the Alexander Forbes business, so add a lot of load without necessarily having to modify the truck. So that was the first important reason. The second is, when we looked at strategic capabilities that we believe are critical, for a short-term insurance business moving forward, the Alexander Forbes insurance business certainly, had some of those capabilities, so complementary to what existed in the Momentum business. And the third, view, and perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, it's proven to be correct, is we just thought that, the complementary sort of products and services will put us in a position to grow, just a little bit more faster and sustainably rather than the two businesses independent of each other.
Yeah.
And given, how COVID has decimated, our new business volumes, specifically during the course of last year, we've certainly been able to survive, through that very difficult challenge and that time. And we think that, this integrated business really positions us very well for growth moving forward.
You talk about market share, you talk about economies of scale, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that and what that, fuels for the business in just a bit. Before we do, Bradley, how does a consumer put a price tag on something like insurance? How does one even begin to assess how much value assurance can bring to their lives?
I think that's an interesting question. And perhaps one of the things that it points to is that the sense of safety has to be tailor-made for each person. And so as an insurer, you need to really listen to each person's particular need. And as I also say, if you can speak to a consumer in a sense that takes care of them almost from cradle through to grave at every single point of their lives. Because, for example, I may feel safe because I live in a secured complex and so forth, there's good security, and I haven't had any incidents that has ever happened to me. Somebody else could live in that very same complex, but maybe they've had an incident in the past, or they in the past have been a victim of crime or hijacking or theft or anything like that. So in that sense, that person is going to have a very different need with regards to feeling safe. So for example, if I can use the example that Brant was talking about, they would perhaps really appreciate or would really value having the panic button or the secure assist or anything like that, where somebody else who has a different perception of safety may not feel that need to have the panic button. So again, it's individualized based on our personal history and also our personal perception or sense of what makes us feel safe.
Yeah, Landu, from your research, do you have any sense of how much investment South Africans make in attaining this kind of surety? We hear time and time again how bad South Africans are at savings. Are we equally or worse off as far as insurance is concerned?
Oh, we're underinsured as a country. It's just,
Absolutely.
it's known, life, short term. But you'd find that a lot of car that drives in South African roads, more than 70% are actually not insured. And it becomes your problem, the one who has the insurance, you go and claim with your insurer, whereas you could have been claiming, if it was not your fault, you could have been claiming from the other party, from the third party insurance. But I think we are very challenged as consumers because we live on check by paycheck, so month to month, and we try and make the little rents we have stretch. And in the process, because when you haven't had an incident, people insurance is one of the things that they tick off. I can't get away without insurance at this point in time. Some people don't even consider it unless it's compulsory because it comes with the purchase. So I think while people have this safety concerns, not all the time they necessarily marry them with insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They think of safety. It's so easy to sell, armed response. Many homes have armed response. And you think, but why are people signing up for armed response so easily? But they don't sign up for insurance. So I think it's also up to the industry to just, that little bit of education. And, they're just cleaning up the reputation as well in terms of when people claim, so that because you really do need to have people insured. You cannot every time, you have an accident and it's not even your fault, but it becomes your problem.
Absolutely. But
So I wanted to add to what Lundiwe said. So I think that the industry certainly has a ever increasing role to play in terms of consumer education. We can't sort of just blame consumers for not being educated. We have a role to play. The positive thing is that it is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy if consumers start changing their behavior. So what we have seen on our own book, and some of our competitors have seen similar behavior change and benefit, is consumers who, in our case now, connect to our safety value proposition and who just use one of the elements of our value proposition, display materially better behavior than those who don't. And better behavior is better for them, better for us, better for their financial advisor. So they claim less, they stay with the insurance company longer, which ultimately will translate into lower premiums for them. If it is a pervasive sort of set of behavior, it starts to become lower premiums for everyone. So, having insurance, Londiwe mentioned right in the beginning, very few of our consumers have the means, if a car is written off or a house burns down, to foot the bill for that entire thing on their own. Unfortunately, our society just isn't in such a position. But if you can display the right behavior, you can be, in a way, the master of your own destiny. And in our view, the more we can inspire our consumers to act differently, to behave differently, to be safe, we can translate that benefit to them. So in our case, we've got a bit of a bonus that our clients can earn by just engaging, behaving differently, driving a little bit better. So there is sort of commercial
method. I just want to interrupt you there.
Well.
That's what the consumer can do, right? But you also spoke to the benefit of acquiring a business, how it, yes, brings market share into a stable, but it also brings with it a certain amount of cost efficiency, right? So from your side of the equation, how quickly does that cost efficiency translate down to the consumer, if at all?
It ultimately must benefit the consumer. The sort of cost base of the business equates to about a third of the factors which determine profitability. Mm-hmm. So if an insurance company, has a lower cost base, absolutely it can translate that into benefit for consumers. Many of our competitors, the sort of new, more sort of insurtech businesses make that claim that because they don't have legacy systems, it must be cheaper. In our case, I think the hypothesis holds true. What has been beneficial, in our environment is that when, business volumes are under pressure and you have scale, your ability to weather the storm is just, severely better than a small business, where the same thing happens. So we've certainly seen benefit, and, over time, we really hope that it will put us in a position to be even more price competitive. To listen to that first point, our consumers told us that affordability still matters.
Because that's the reality, right, Bradley? The value proposition has got to be a strong one. It's got to make sense to the consumer at the end of the day.
And I think just I wanted to kind of sort of jump in when Londiwe was explaining about how consumers often, they try to skimp on insurance. And I think with insurance, whether it's health insurance or it's short-term insurance, always never under-insure. Always rather over-insure than you're completely safe. But putting the 2 points that Londiwe and Brant made, something came to mind to me which says, sell safety, not fear. Because if I think about all of those security companies, they often sell on fear. You'll get a call that will say, in your neighborhood, this is the statistics, that's what it looks like. You should join us because we do that and this and this and that. And I think there, the proposition that's being sold is, you're so scared, we're going to take care of your fear. Whereas what we want to say is, are you safe? We want to ensure that you are safe. And everything we do is around enhancing your safety. And that's the idea I just had now around, that's how the insurer and the consumer need to meet each other. It's about pulling you out of your fear into, let's go to safety. How can we extend your safety? And I was also just thinking, particularly with COVID-19 now, things have changed. Safety has become a lot more of a concern for people than it ever was. I think in South Africa in particular, we often were just afraid of crime. Now we're afraid of an invisible enemy. And we now certainly have to think about safety all the time. And so this is also the ideal teachable moment to bring consumers into a sense of safety? How do we bring about safety behavior so that we feel safe? And if we have a safer society, we will also have a more productive and a more and just a more flourishing society. And that, for me, as a psychologist, that is the absolute goal. Is if we can make the society better, then everyone is winning.
Yeah, we can't hide from the fact, though, that this is a complex beast, right? Because we make it sound so easy that you can't have a one-size-all-fits approach to everyone. But it's a challenge getting into, personal preferences, personal needs, personal desires at the end of the day. So let's get into that, the challenge that is posed for insurance companies and how that's perhaps stood as one of the hurdles that need to be cleared right at the top, Landiwe.
I think the challenge starts with the fact that we don't have the same pockets. Some have got a bit deeper pockets, and because of that, they don't have to think whether to make a choice between buying an additional loaf of bread or reducing their insurance excess. So it starts there as the cost first. But at the same time, I feel that, you may focus too much on the cost that, it kind of almost defeats the purpose of insurance, because you're focusing on lowering this premium, monthly premium, to a point where when you need the insurance, it's not really going to be there for you, because you're not going to hold your end of the bargain of paying the excess that you are required to. So I think it calls for insurers, to kind of look at, we've got this market segment that we really want to cover, but we're not really able to cover it now. And unfortunately, that's the most vulnerable segment of the market. What sort of innovation can we do as an industry to, cover this market? And I've seen, fintech players that have come up with some really interesting innovation, whether it is, to put out fires in informal settlements, and it is a premium that is equal to an airtime voucher. But I think, traditional insurers, there's still that element of, not playing in that market. But I understand, Brian, that you do have, a little bit of what we can call a fintech element into your business. But I just would like to know, traditional insurers, what more can they do with that technology? Because you've got a bigger bill to fit, to foot the bill for the technology than these fintech players do. So maybe on how else can you help this more vulnerable?
How do you navigate it all at the end of the day, Brent?
If you have advice for me, I'll gladly take it. But so first, perhaps to the point that Londiwe made, so I'm all in favor of, smaller fintech sort of based players solving problems for our clients. And traditional, I think, insurance companies have not yet proven that we can solve all of the problems specifically our most vulnerable consumers face. So I think that's a very valid point, and we have seen fintech players addressing that. And I think that's a wonderful example for the larger businesses to try and follow. I don't think being a big business, necessarily excludes being nimble and using technology in an efficient way. I don't think that often, the more digitized businesses would say, but it's a legacy business, they're too slow, they've got all of this sort of legacy processes and systems. Yes, it is true, but it is not an absolute truth. So, I think there are many examples of large insurance companies, of which, we are one, who's used technology, cleverly to, solve a particular problem, either of the business or of the consumer. And in our case, we're trying to, to think about it in that way. Having digital isn't necessarily the strategy. Having digital enable your business strategy is where I think the solution lies.
Yeah. Bradley, it's a very fine line to walk, right? Because on the one hand, we're talking about being an empathetic business, one that engages with its clients. On the other, we're talking about becoming more digital. And you've got to straddle the two very carefully.
So you straddle the two, I believe, and so Brant was saying he's open to some advice. So I'm going to take a shot here. So
we're an advice-led business, Bradley, so advice doesn't only come from me.
So the first thing I'm going to say is simplicity.
Yeah,
that's the number one thing, simplicity. So, for example, when you get that call and the agent is kind of reading you the whole agreement, which they have to do, but Can we shorten those agreements so that it's got all the material legal facts that are necessary for the cover, including material fact is, I can reduce the premium by 150, but your excess will be 11,000. Do you think that's something that you'd be able to afford, or should we rather do the 150 so that so that you fundamentally can have the adequate cover? But number one, I think what needs to happen is a needs analysis within your own business. The people that sell these products, they themselves have cars, they themselves have homes. I would like to know, as a consumer now, I'd like to know that they have gotten a quote from their own business and they have decided to go with Momentum Short-Term Insure because it's the best cover to cover my life. That's the first thing. The second thing is the employees of this brand, the employer brand needs to speak to their employees that you really are safe by being part of this team. And in that way, they can walk the talk and really sell that safety. So the third one for me is, if I had to really put it quite simply, what is necessary around tailor-making a product which really extends the value proposition of safety, the science of safety and the science of safety for your success. It's quite simple, actually. Simplicity, integrity, sustainability.
Yeah.
Just those three.
Bradley, sorry, Brent, from the flurry of short-term insurance products you've already held in your portfolio, I mean, how much simpler have things gotten as you've progressed over the past 2 years?
It's actually become a little bit more complex because we've added, one or two additional products, but it has become simpler because those products are aimed at very specific market segments. So in the context of business complexity, for us, it's increased, but for consumers, it's become more simpler because I think that because of the way that we've structured our products, they can see themselves, in one of the solutions that we provide. And I think, to Bradley's point, that is key for any insurance company. If you, in the last week or two, we've had some consumer, satisfaction results published in our industry. You can see what consumers are concerned about. Perhaps a month or so ago, our ombudsman published their results, also linking it to complaints. And this idea of simplicity, this idea of consumers not knowing what they are covered for is critical for all of us. So we've tried to simplify it. We go through sort of regular processes based on complaints to address areas where we can see there's a lack of understanding. Many consumers sort of view short-term insurance, unfortunately, as a maintenance product as opposed to a risk or a perils-based product, which is quite a fundamental difference.
Mm-hmm.
But to make a long answer short, we can do more to be more simple in the way that we present it. But it's as long as we can marry that with good advice and understanding of the needs of our clients, I think we can get again to that feeling of safety.
But the responsibility street goes two ways, right? It's that of the insurer, but the consumer as well. Bradley, what do you see the idea of putting safety and control back in the hands of the customers doing in people's minds? I mean, how much of an impact can this have in triggering a shift in mindset about insurance products and the value that they put on the table?
As Brent was talking, I thought of this phrase: short-term insurance is a critical life product. Right? So not to assure it, not to confuse it with life cover.
Mm-hmm.
It's a critical life product because actually that's the change we need to make in people's minds, that it's not a grudge purchase, actually. It's critical for the success and the fullness of your life to have the adequate cover. So in that sense, the consumers, and this is why I think the brand and what the brand offers and the product it offers, people need to start talking about this and say, wow, I had my tire burst the other day. I was coming back from holiday. It was all covered. I didn't ruin my holiday glow or anything. I got picked up, and that was that was a real example for me. That's what that happened. So, so we must start almost like re-socializing consumers, and I'm going to use consumer stroke South Africans, into the notion that, that short-term insurance and security is a critical, essential life product that's going to help us to be able to live fulfilled lives. And I think particularly with COVID-19 now, for example, I know that the Momentum Group has also been involved in vaccination sites and those things. That is an absolute, in the moment right now, in vivo. That is a way in which we are. We can see and we can say that in that way, I think Momentum and any other business that gets involved in making vaccinations possible, they are showing that they're walking the talk towards making safety a crucial and critical part of life success.
Yeah, there's so many elements that that have just erupted here and that we've got to unpack. But Londiwe, how does it make sense financially to give control to the client?
I think people are really liking this idea of being incentivized by their insurer for taking care of their own safety. So I know that maybe my insurance is this much, but if I drive better, I'm getting this rebate, which reduces my insurance premium. So it kind of feels like by having that power, I have the power in me to reduce, because at the end of the day, to consumers, it comes down to price. Yes, there is the safety element, but then now you're mirroring the price, you're mirroring the safety. They know that instinctively they're saved by having, this alarm on at home. So it's not just about the price, but I know I actually did put the alarm on when I left home. So there's that peace of mind. I'm driving better because my telematics is showing me that I'm driving better. So you have now that peace of mind in both ways. Financially, I'm getting my rebates at the end of the month, but at the same time, I'm feeling safer.
And Brand, that's something that you highlighted right at the top, right? That you're looking to further influence behavior by incentivizing the clients that sit on your books. Talk us through that strategy. How do you incentivize and encourage a specific kind of behavior, a behavior that pays off for you at the end of the day too?
I think by making sure that that behavior also pays off for the client. And that's the critical thing. So, there are so many South Africans, so many of our clients who already do what any insurance company would expect them to do, and that's to display sort of safe and responsible behavior. But there are others, who are perhaps a little bit more marginal in their behavior, and we hope that by creating opportunities to positively influence them, by pointing out what you can or should be doing, would help them to display better behavior. And if they do so, we are more than happy to share, some of that benefit again, with them, to put the control in their hands. And I think last year during COVID, the short-term insurance industry, perhaps, it was a tale of two halves with, some bad industry reputational issues. But also, I think our industry did wonderful work by giving literally billions of rands back to our consumers by way of reduced premiums, support for small and medium-sized, enterprises, assistance for our financial advisors, all of these things as a result of, an understanding of the situation our consumers find themselves in, but also because there was a behavior change. We saw our driving behavior, because we have a telematics offering, drop materially in April of last year because of hard lockdown, and consumers must pay less for their car insurance as a result of that. So we gave some money back as an industry. Many insurers did that. Unfortunately, we've seen that creep up to very close to where we used to be prior to the initial hard lockdown. Now, I hope that given the announcement last night of our president, that we would see some of that reduce again to, hopefully more responsible levels. And it's led to innovation in our industry. Now we've got more pay-as-you-drive kind of offerings. We've got benefits for insurance clients which weren't present prior to that. And it's because insurance companies listen.
Has it been tough, though, developing that strategy? Because, we talk about insurance products not having this one-size-fits-all approach to it. Incentivizing people, has that same kind of... or brings that to the fore once again, because not everyone is incentivized the same way.
It's been very difficult, and specifically if you play across different market segments. So again, we rely on the quality of our financial advisors, on the advice to highlight to us, what the needs of our consumers are, and to then, in a sort of trial and error basis, build solutions, see whether it works, it leads to the desired change in behavior, or whether consumers feel value. And if it doesn't, I think that's one lesson that we've learned. There's a big difference between perfection and excellence, and we're in the excellence business. To try and build something perfect in a society, in an environment that changes so fast, is close on impossible. So, it's an ongoing process, but, the feedback that we have received to date has been very positive.
Yeah. Bradley, how do you see insurance companies getting this right? Because it's really tricky to navigate, especially in a country as diverse as South Africa is.
I'm going to go with something that I wanted to say earlier as I was listening to Brant, which is saying incentivizing consumers for consumer change or behavior change. That's the first step. And obviously, that makes sense to a lot of people. But if you look at all the different incentivized businesses, people always find a way to kind of buck the system, right? Remember all the Apple Watches people got, people were putting them on their dogs, on the fan, So they were happy to get the watch and to get the benefits, but actually was it changing their health? Because I'm not exercising, the dog's wearing the watch around the house and so forth. So that's why my sense is we have to go beyond incentivizing. And the next step for me is you have to start changing the psyche. It needs to become part of the cells of the consumers and of a country. So, for example, where I feel empowered for my own safety. So, don't just give me the security button. Send me for an advanced driving course. Put it in my hands. And when I have that security of knowing that I am responsible and I am empowered to manage my own safety, then it's in your DNA. But just saying I'm going to score R5 if I don't claim so often, that's almost like just very day-to-day type stuff. So the next level is it needs to go into the DNA of the country.
And that's imperative because you brought up the whole incentivizing thing, right? But it's got to incentivize you to want to be better and to do better at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the advanced driving course that Bradley mentioned, I mean, why has no one thought about it? Because at the end of the day, it will benefit insurers massively. And I think that people will, to them, it will no longer just be about, I need insurance when I claim, but it will be, I need insurance just to make my life better, my safety better. So it should be going beyond just insuring me once I've had a bad incident.
It should be fueling your life skills at the end of the day, right?
It should be with me throughout.
That all being said, it's not static either, Bradley. So this is important. What do we have to be cognizant of when it comes to the needs of clients and how they shift and alter the requisite solutions that we are putting on the table as that life cycle progresses?
So I think the first thing is, and I just want to answer your question, but also tag onto what Londi was saying, which is saying that people need to understand what I can do to make things safer. So I am going to say, for example, you can drive, the safest car in the world, and we all know which brand that is. But what I liked about my experience of absolutely believing in that brand is when you buy the vehicle, you have that full day track day where they show you this is how it works. This is what normal cars look like without it. This is what it looks like with this particular city safety feature. And they show you how to use it. And so that's the thing. You've got to tell consumers that, remember, your short-term cover covers you for 1 to 3. You can also get psychological assistance if you've had a violent crime or any sort of crime incident. Many people don't know that. And so it's important that people know that. And then to answer your question quite succinctly, which is saying that the cradle to grave understanding of the consumer is essential. So you need to understand that while I'm single, I'm in a lockup, I don't really need the secure button, but once I start having children, my family grows, I do need that. And once I go into my own business as opposed to being employed, I need the business continuity. But I would like somebody who talks to me throughout my lifetime. And I think that's the issue for me.
So, Brand, how is something like that managed here? Is there an upping of levels of engagement in that regard with clients, or is the onus solely on the customer and their responsibility to update when needed?
Consumers obviously have a responsibility, but I think in this instance, it is our role as insurance company to create more opportunities for engagement. And because it extends beyond just your traditional short-term insurance product, and it is, to Bradley's point, it is really and Londiwe made the same point, it relates to how you spend your time every day. That creates, opportunities for engagement. That engagement leads us to gather data. Data is the most prized commodity in our business. And translating that data into an appropriate insight which solves a problem for a client. That's where the magic, in a way, lies. And that, we need to do. So the more opportunities for engagement we create, if it's of value to clients, they'll use it. The more they use it, the more we understand. The more we understand, the better we can do it the next time, if we choose to do so. So not all insurance companies, unfortunately, think like that, but that certainly is our philosophy. And to the point that I think Bradley also made, this idea is a lot more than a campaign for us. It is about vesting a new philosophy in sort of very extreme terms, a bit of a religion in our business, speaking to, understanding clients, having empathy, and creating this feeling of safety because we care, we know, we want to understand, and we are in it with our clients.
You talk about this lending to your competitive edge. How are you rating your competitive muscle right now? Because this has to have become an increasingly competitive market, even if you've just gobbled up one of the contenders.
It is a highly competitive market. We've got some world-class businesses in our industry, of which I have the greatest respect for. So we're early days in sort of this integrated business. Actually, from this week will be the first time that we operate as a combined business. So that's when our sort of full bouquet of products and services will be experienced for the first time. So maybe if we have a follow-up chat, Alicia, in 6 months from today or so, I'll be better positioned to tell you how it actually played out. But we're very confident, we're extremely excited, and historically, both businesses have a great track record for success. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes in business integrations, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It remains 1, and in extreme cases, it becomes even less. But we hope, that at some point we can at least be 2 and hopefully be 3, and then I'll be a very happy guy. So
okay, Bradley, closing comments from your side. I mean, this has been a very engaging conversation. It's been very fruitful as well. We've learned about why insurance is so important. Your parting comment.
I think for me, again, the parting comment is, safety is not something that we want to pretend to do. Safety is something that we really must walk, we must talk, and we must put it to the test as well. So for example, when you do that car test with a dummy inside, you want to see that it actually works. And then for me, what I'm really liking about this conversation today is competition is great. I'm so happy that you spoke about competition and how you're going to manage that with regards to the insurance industry. Because for me as a consumer, if everyone is competing, I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, listen, Momentum's offering this, and then say to PPS, listen, I know you say that you're catering for medical professionals, blah, 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 but you're not taking care of this piece. It's amazing when you see how quickly they pick it up. They're like, no, we'll do something for you. And all consumers should have that savvy. I mean, we should be having an insurance coffee once a year, right, with our insurer to say, listen, over the last 3 years, you've seen nothing's happened. Last year, nothing's happened. What can you do about, because when we get that re-rate letter, I wonder how many people actually read that re-rate letter. And then when a premium goes up, everyone's just like accepts it and go on.
You'll be surprised, Bradley.
Well, I'm one of
I was going to raise my hand and say, I fight yearly.
I fight yearly. And in fact, what often happens is, I don't fight actually. I just say, listen, can you please look at bringing that down? I'm also going to shop around. And quickly they say, no, we can do that. You've been with us for a long time. So forth. So every year for me, it's a win-win. And even if you're just saving that 150 that you were concerned about, it makes a difference, So for me, safety has to be part of the DNA.
Absolutely. Londiwe, any interesting shift you've seen, particularly in the past year, with COVID really having changed the way we live our lives, that insurance companies need to start paying more attention to?
I think we've started to question whether we really need the things that we have. I mean, I've got a car that's parked, 7 days a week if my daughter's not going to school. So I think insurers, we've seen the premium reduction that came with that. But at the same time, like, I'm at home more. Shouldn't I be getting, some sort of a re-rating of my home contents insurance? Shouldn't I be, maybe pay as you go kind of insurance? I think we need a bit more innovation because I think we will be staying home more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is really where this new phrase has been coined, right? And that's agility. We've got to adapt and move with the times. Thank you all for having joined us in studio this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, of course, Brand Bradley and Londiwe. And that's where we leave things for this hour. Thank you all for sharing your insights with us this morning. It's been Quite the engagement, and hopefully plays a role in shifting perceptions about insurance and how it translates to one's overall well-being. To you watching, thanks for having joined this discussion, and you can continue to engage with us using the hashtag #SafetyIsAScience and find out more about the products by visiting momentum.co.za. Bye for now.